Call the meeting to order. For those who care to, please rise for an opening prayer. Pledge to the flag. Dr. Ward, would you open us in a word of prayer, please, sir?
Sure. Father, we always come before you with grateful hearts, thankful for the blessings that you give to our community. I thank you for the men and women who work for this city, who care about this city, the men and women who serve on this council, and we ask you continually for wisdom to know what decisions to make and the courage to follow through. We think about our nation, continue to think about Joplin and the many needs that are around us, and we believe that we can do all that we can humanly, but that at some point we ask for your divine help. In the name of your Son, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Hey, what am I here for? Everybody thinks it's yeah. I'd like to open it up now for citizen participation. Anyone wishing to speak to anything not on the agenda, please step forward, state your name, sign in, give us your best 3 minutes. Seeing none, citizen participation closed. Need a motion on the consent agenda? Motion. Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Financial report, Mr. Krischke.
I hope everyone has a copy of the financial report. The non-recurring bills are $102,308.32. Of that, you'll notice two large expenditures split between sewer and water, $36,625.79. That was the final payment to Singer Construction for the water and sewer work out to VLP out in the Brookline area. That was what we put under contract. Work had been completed for quite some time, but they were getting their paperwork finalized and in for their final payment. So that's closed out, and that's the last remaining amount to be paid for that. Other than that, most of the expenses are normal to each department.
That one.
Which one?
Time delay and some bearings for the pump.
Yes, yes. So, yes, and that's in the sewer department page. It's on page 4. Mayor had asked about $200, and that was some of the parts for the pump repairs.
Questions, comments, discussion from City Council? Anything at all? Approved financial report?
Motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Any reports from staff? Anything?
Right.
Mr. Derrick, welcome back. No, sir? Yep. Okay, fantastic. Community events, August 11th, last day to register for the first annual Youth Tigger Triathlon. August 12th, last day to register for the 5th annual Republic Triathlon. August 12th is the first annual Youth Tigger Triathlon. August 12th through the 14th is 150th anniversary reenactment of the Battle of Wilson's Creek. August 13th, the 5th annual Republic Tiger Triathlon. How many are we expecting this year, King?
Just over 400.
Just over 400. How are we ranking in the state so far?
Around 3 or 4.
3 or 4. How many are there in the state?
There's a lot.
Five. At least 5. Wait for you to say 3 or 4.
By comparison, Springfield had their concrete man last weekend or the week before. They had about 200. So our triathlon is very strong.
Wonderful. Glad to hear it. Also, August 13th is Operation Backpack to be held at the Destiny Church. August 18th through the 20th is Kiwanis Fall Festival. August 7th is is the Republic City of Hope to be held at the Republic Community Center. Republic 16th through 18th is Republic Steam Engine Days, and August 1st is Pumpkin Days. Board of Commissioners Report, Board of Adjustments, September 1st. Capital Improvements Committee, August 22nd. City Council is also August 22nd, along with 12th. Planning and Zoning, August 15th. Okay. On old business. On? We've had it on the table. Yep. Okay. Bill number 11-1 has been on the table. I need a motion to take bill number 11-16 off the table for its second reading.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second to take 16 off the table. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Need a motion to have the second reading of 16.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, approving the final plat of the Woodland Park Estates Phase 1 subdivision located on the 100 block of South Illinois Avenue in the City of Republic, Missouri.
Need a motion to have final passage bill number 11-16.
Motion.
Second. Mr. Tyson, welcome. Please bring us up to date. Give us the overview, sir.
This ordinance will approve the final plat that you have attached to the bill. This phase of the subdivision, this subdivision was originally called Indian Trails Phase 2, and some of you may remember it was originally approved in 2005, later extended, and was substantially constructed at that time. Eventually went back to the bank. The current developer purchased it from the bank and has since finished up this phase of it, which is called Phase 1. It includes 7 lots. The entire subdivision is zoned medium density single family with minimum lot size of 9,000. Phase 1 just includes these 7. There's 41 lots in total. The final plat here, if you recall, tabled for several meetings now to allow time for the developer to finish construction of the subdivision. As of today, construction is pretty much complete, save for one thing, and I just passed around a memo, a motion that you can use to amend this bill. What's missing at this point is some fill and lots. It would be lots 3, 4, and 5. There's some fill that has not yet been placed and graded according to the design. In lieu of postponing this even further, we're proposing that council can, if you desire, amend this so that for those 3 lots, there won't be any building permits issued until that fill is placed and appropriately designed and graded. And the motion also includes an alternative to that, whereby instead of filling them up according to the original design, they could provide an alternative design and construct the detention basin that's planned for Phase 2, which it would be immediately north of the detention basin in Phase 1. Build that detention basin to completion and then bypass the stormwater from lots 3, 4, and 5 around to the Illinois Avenue right-of-way, and they would build the new Phase 2 detention basin at an increased capacity in exchange for that.
Council comments, questions, or discussion? Mr. Wilson first, Mr. Harder second.
You have been out there, have you not? Lots 3, 4, and 5, as they stand right now, I don't see how you can build a house.
You would not be able to. You would have to add,
A lot of people.
yes.
Mr. Harder?
So you're saying that they're gonna continue building with 7, is that correct?
Yes.
And how's the runoff gonna affect those lots?
Those lots will drain to the street and into the sewer infrastructure and
So-
get to the detention basin that they're supposed to get
So
to.
building on 1, 2, 6, and 7, then we won't have any problems with drainage. Thank you.
And that one is the existing home on the corner.
Okay.
So part of when this developer took over, the past developer, they had the issue with that house on the corner and some easements and such on there. So by doing this, they've corrected that problem and made that a separate lot where that person will now have all the access they need. And then 2, 6, and 7 would be built on.
Okay.
And if you might have noticed, that house encroaches on the minimum building setback. There's a note placed on this plat that states, and the owner of that property is aware of this, that house will become a lawfully existing non-conforming structure. So it will be allowed to continue just as it is. They can do normal maintenance, repairs, limited remodels, but if it's ever destroyed or if they ever plan to do a significant expansion or addition to the building, they would have to bring the entire structure into conformity at that time.
Mr. Plickenbeard?
What's the delay in them completing the work on 3, 4, and 5? Are they avoiding it, or they just haven't gotten to it yet, or too costly and saving money, or?
Mr. Turner's actually here. I think he can answer that question best.
It's mostly a money issue and time, because it's gonna take lots and lots of fill, so I probably won't do the fill. I'll probably go ahead and pursue and do the detention basin in the next phase, which, it shouldn't take too long, maybe a few months, but I didn't even realize about this till today, that this was even coming up.
Is the second phase then
Yeah, in the
starting
next phase.
imminently?
Yeah, and that's probably what I'll try to do, is do the detention area in the second phase, as opposed to do all the filling, because it'll take tons and tons of fill to get it up. I mean, we'll have to fill it to build the houses, but for the stormwater runoff, the other detention area should take care of it.
Thank you.
That's your question? Yes. Okay. Other questions, comments, discussion? Anything at all? Mr. Hunsinger?
Is there any time frame on when this has to be completed, or the detention pond has to be done? In other words, you're building houses here that need a detention pond.
The basin is complete. The basin itself is constructed according to the design. It's the fill in front of the basin that's not there. And no, there wouldn't be a time frame on placing the fill, just that he wouldn't get a building permit until he did.
And that, before you don't mind me jumping in, that's what we worked on this evening, and that's what we were a few minutes late getting started, was because we were trying to come up with some language to amend the motion to include on lots 3, 4, and 5 that they would have to have approved in place prior to getting a building permit. Because we understand the difficulties the developer has with filling the lots ahead of time and then having to dig them back out again. So as long as we would have the approved plans, engineering plans, grading plans in place, so we knew what the intent was and issue the building permit. And it just wouldn't allow him to just go out and build without first submitting the plans that we need.
Other questions, comments, discussion, council? And roll call vote? Oh, sorry.
Issue
I
of
got
the
an
motion. Yeah, if, as an amendment, if council chooses to take the staff recommendation, the motion to amend would need to be made.
Make that motion.
Motion to amend what?
Second?
I move to amend Bill number 11-16, following language in Section 2 of the ordinance. However, no building permit shall be issued for lots 3, 4, and 5 until those lots have an approved grading plan in accordance with the approved grading plan and inspected accordingly for compliance, or in the alternative, the detention area for Phase 2 of the development has been designed and constructed to offset bypassing stormwater from these lots into the detention of Phase 1.
I have a motion, do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor of amended motion?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Amended motion carries. Now, any other questions, comments, discussion? The amended portion, the new amended.
Yes.
Mr. Grooms?
Approved grading plan in accordance with and approved designs, et cetera. My question is what's, so that you can get a building permit if you have a grading plan, but not having had it carried out?
That's correct. It would be, the construction according to that grading plan that we're reviewing.
Home would include the grading plan
That's
being
right.
fulfilled.
That's right. We would
So
also be
you could get a building
inspecting.
permit, but you couldn't get an occupancy permit until the grading was done.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's your question. Other questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilmember Harrelson? Aye. Councilmember Poole?
Aye.
Councilmember Ward?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Councilmember Hunsinger?
Aye.
Councilmember Gruen?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Clinkenbeard?
Aye.
Need a motion to have the second reading of bill number 11-19.
Motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Carries.
An ordinance of the City of Republic, Missouri, amending Title IV Land Use, Chapter 410 Subdivision Regulations for the City of Republic, Article 2 Minor Subdivision, 410.110 Minor Subdivisions, by amending a regulation concerning the limited employment of minor subdivisions.
Need a motion to have 1-19.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Tyson, please give us the overview, sir.
This bill will, in a sense, remove what I call the one-and-done rule for minor subdivisions. Currently, you can do one minor subdivision on any given. You can no longer perform any further minor subdivisions on that same property, it leaving you with the only option to perform a major subdivision and install the necessary infrastructure that goes along with that. What I've discovered, and we've had several, there are some properties who have been subdivided by a minor subdivision, and just as a reminder, minor subdivision that will create 4 or fewer lots and require no infrastructure installation, meaning all of the necessary city services are already. You're just basically doing a split of the property. Right now, you could do that, split one property into two, then still that property would still remain ripe, so to speak, for another split. The one and done rule, you would not be able to do that. So there are certain properties that could be subdivided again up in this one and done rule, and therefore are ineligible. This ordinance would remove that so that you could do additional minor subdivisions, don't circumvent that major subdivision process, meaning you won't be allowed to create more than 4 lots from any given parent tract as it was. We currently have actually a couple of properties and property owners that this, if council were to improve it, and the Town Center Plaza is probably a good example. They have 3 separate buildings, property there, and they believe it's owned by a bank now, and the bank believes that they'll have more success selling if they're sold separately, or if at least one of the buildings is sold separately. So they'd like to split at least one of the buildings off, but they can't in a minor subdivision before to split off the bank that's on the corner. I believe it's Great Southern. So they're ineligible because of the one and done. Property very well, in theory, could be split again by minor subdivision. So this amendment would allow for that to happen. We also have a proposal, 600 block of South Main, where due to some unfortunate sets of circumstances, from a minor subdivision to make some property buildable again, but they've already done a minor subdivision back in the late 1980s, so because of the one and done rule.
Questions, comments, discussion? Mr. Clickenberry?
Have we considered, you know, have we considered like a time rule? You just said this one was from the 1980s, the example you gave. Obviously they did this to keep your subdivision, but could you also add language in there, or had you considered language of having time periods between them, like a 5 or 10 years, that something else has just come up? Or as we get down the road, 20, 30 years from now, as many as they can do, there might still be a tract of land large enough to break it again. And is that something that was considered at all as far as just a time period?
I don't mean to jump in for Garrett, but I don't believe we thought of the time period issue. Certainly, if we go back, like in this case, in the late 1980s, and we have record of the subdivision, then they would be ineligible. This would be a fix to the current minor subdivisions. When we get done with the new revised zoning codes and building codes that were likely will be consolidated and be changed once again. But this does add some flexibility to some unusual situations, one being the shop, being the property off Main Street. You know, trying to add some flexibility to allow for people to make.
When you say time periods, you mean if you perform a minor subdivision, you can't again for X number of years?
Well, like when you had a one and done rule, you could also change it by just saying, you know, after 10 years you could do another one, or after 5 years you could, you know, you could, or you could do, you know, that was just an option. If this is primarily a stopgap for a few issues that are now, then this will do the job, I'm sure.
Carter?
My concern on this is you take the 600 block of Main, what you're talking about, that house is built and there's a lot in behind it. But then we have other neighbors now all around there that I think if you can just keep doing that and keep breaking that lot up, you're just changing that area to a detriment of somebody who may have bought knowing that that area was not able to be made into a subdivision. You need to take into consideration the people who live around in the area also too.
My question too, and Mr. Clickenberry, I want to clarify what you're. Were you saying that they have a time limit to do a minor subdivision, or they have a time limit before they can do another one?
Before they can do another, so that they can't circumvent a major subdivision.
I agree.
So if they had to wait 5 or 10 years, obviously that's not their goal. So that would take them forever to.
And I just wanted to clarify that,
Yeah.
because when you said timeframes, most people think timeframes are ending and not
Right,
point
no.
forward. Okay, fair enough. Other? Mr. Ward, Dr. Ward, go ahead.
Have we been approached by the owners of the land there on ZZ that donated some land to us and made a minor subdivision, didn't they?
No, they did not go through minor subdivision.
The land to the city and kept part of it,
Yes, they did.
would that not be a subdivision? If there's an exception for land given to a mental entity, does not count as a minor subdivision.
Mr. Grooms?
Just a reminder for me, maybe, subdivision, does that come before council or not?
It does not. Those are approved
It's
administratively.
entirely a staff decision.
That's where I agree with Daniel, you know how I hate to do that, but, if, properties here that people have expressed an interest to do. And I think we ought to talk to the people, I agree with them, we ought to talk to the people, around them to make sure that this is not a hindrance to their lives. We're not making an ordinance, we're making an ordinance generally, but we're also making an ordinance, the way I understand what you're saying, is for two different, particularly, the shopping center and then the main one.
It would help them most immediately.
I think we owe an obligation to the people that, like Dan says, has built there with the idea that this is the way it was going to be. And I just think that we ought to get their input.
And that property that we're referring to on Main Street, it's Main and Kimberly, or?
Jewel.
Jewel. Yeah, there's a virtual piece behind there that is landlocked, and the way that it would be impossible for them to re-subdivide that larger tract in behind there. Gary might be able to know how we came up with that, but because of the access to that property, it's going to make it impossible for them to go back and subdivide.
What they have proposed, the way they proposed it, and they can only do it if council passes this, is that creates the 4 lots. There any more re-subdividing unless they do a major subdivision, which council has the authority to approve or not approve.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Hunsinger?
So they wouldn't be able to minor sub again. They'd be at their maximum. They wouldn't be able to getting some direct street access into that back portion. They wouldn't be able to do a major subdivision.
Well, in the interest of representing what we're here for, I don't see any problem in staff going out and talking to the people around that area to get their. That's my problem.
And if they don't like it?
Well, have some more information to work with.
Mr. Grims?
Of course, everybody's talking about just these 2 pieces of property come in down the road. And I guess what I'm sitting here and kind of starting to go towards is maybe going backwards a little bit. You set a ball in motion over which we never see again. It's all handled.
Correct.
You give the express. Staff takes care of it. Maybe if we're going to do away with the one and done, the minor subdivision process needs to for council. That gives people in the surrounding areas the ability to come forward in citizen participation or in the have their concerns addressed.
Would we want people coming can choose who we decide yay and nay to?
No, you treat it just like any other subdivision. You have a public hearing area. They receive notice. They come to the city council meeting when that particular subdivision or the final plat is.
That might be a better way to do it.
Just as a note, we've had this issue come up in the past, and been somewhat upset at staff and holding strictly to like that, or you have to even do the minor subdivision, and staff should have been able to do through these hoops. So that's another consideration that staff has heard in the past from council.
And I'm not faulting this. It does open up a new can of worms that maybe makes us need to rethink that minor subdivision last 10 years or less.
Mr. Harder? Jim, is this something that's gonna be, you were talking earlier about the permitting and everything that we're gonna be doing, looking into, that you're developing a plan for?
the new,
Fall into that?
it would fall into that realm, yeah, that would be,
So we can, in essence, what I'm hearing is, kicked out or whatever until the new, format comes in,
till the new
correct?
zone.
Point.
You are hand tying a bank and a property that could maybe do something though too. Is there ways to make exceptions on motions or anything?
I think we get back to, again, what Jim was saying, we've got to consider not just the partnership also. We've got to take into that consideration too, and if doing this, that wouldn't take that into consideration.
Ms. Poole?
They don't have an easement that goes into that they'd have to share a driveway, and that has not been settled yet. So what do you do when you make a rule like this? And we had a meeting with the people, and what are they to do if they can't get an entrance off of Main Street to get back there for a subdivision of any sort? Get me? I mean, if they can't have access to that, which is landlocked, part of it is totally landlocked, what's the point?
Like I said earlier, the one on South Main I would consider to be
That's what I'm talking about.
very unique, not normal in any way, really. So I wouldn't necessarily compare to that one. There are things about that that are, like I said, very unique. You probably only find it right there. I would consider it more in terms of city. There are more than just these two properties that I wanted to mention these to council because they're immediately, you know, but they're not
This issue's been
the
being
only one.
discussed long before these
That's
two
right.
came along, but just out of concern that you might think brought this up because of these two, we thought we better do full disclosure so you'd know, but this has been something that's been on the burner we've been discussing for a long period of time.
The guy's got property, and he has a chance to make some money on it. Are we supposed to block him from money on it, since it's his property and his boundary, for the neighbors to the outside of his boundary?
I think I don't know if I did it, but I did ask Mr. Derrickson here about some clarification. Currently, let's just clear the air about the 600 South. If I'm not mistaken, it's already been subdivided into 3 lots currently, correct? There's 3 lots there. So that 3 lots have been there forever, basically, since that thing's come up. All they're wanting to do is, if this passes, is add a 4th lot. Is that right?
So it's slightly more complicated.
Slightly more complicated.
That's an
Bottom
essence.
line,
Yes.
this is nothing new. It's been on the books for years. We've known that there's at least 3 subdivided lots on there now. And by going back, if this passes, then they're able to add a 4th lot. So it's not like, to your point, Mr. Appreciate you bringing that up, Mr. Harder. It's not like it's not like we're just adding 4 lots. The 3s have already been there, and they're adding a 4th one. And that's, I think we're taking it too far and saying that we can talk to the neighbors and do all that stuff, when this has been on the books for years. And it's going from 3 to 4. So I'm just letting you know, that was the point of clarification I needed. That doesn't answer your question, Mr. Wilson, but it did. I had to make sure that clarified. Mr. Harder, go ahead.
Okay, barring the 600 South Main issue, let's say some 40-acre minor they got a 40-acre lot, they want to do a minor subdivision, they've made contingencies for an estate division. And then in the future, then they come up now, because they can continue to do more, now they can do a higher density with that lot. So again, I think that they're looking at the existing subdivision or the existing housing around there. I think that's something that needs to be addressed. Like I say, barring the 600, say, brand new subdivision, and it started as an estate, but then they started breaking those down after they built the estate 5-10 years later. Not taking into consideration the people who an estate plan or large lots to stay out of the small lot areas.
I think I can answer that question. In that case, acre tract, you could split it into, over any period of time, 4 10-acre tracts, as long as they all had frontage on a public street, water and sewer, all these things. You could, in theory, make that happen, but you could not violate the zoning regulation to regulate the minimum density. So if it's ag, no matter, they could only create 4 maximum, and on top of that, those 4 could be smaller than 3 acres. So the zoning would determine, would provide some protection, I guess what I'm saying, would provide some protection in terms but you're right, it would be, you turn 1 40-acre tract into 4 10s, it's a significantly higher density than was there before.
Garrett,
But not anything not
the
allowed.
way we define minor subdivision, that wouldn't be a minor subdivision, though, would it? Because it's larger tracts. When you're dealing with larger tracts, it's not a minor subdivision.
But you take your 40-acre subdivision and you take 10 acres and make 3-acre lots, or 5 or 1-acre lots.
Then you're getting to the point where it could be a minor subdivision because of the 3 acres.
Okay.
Once you get under the 3 acres or under, then you start running into the
And again,
3 years.
People that have developed the 3 acres, and this is what our plan was, the 3 acres, and now the other 30 acres now can be developed anyway. So I think we need to look at that a lot closer, because these people have an idea of what they wanted this to be, and this is how they built, and this is what they designed. But now all of a sudden, now here we have whatever going in here. So I think I would like to see it just be taken care of by the plan that the city's coming up with.
But that goes anywhere in the city, what you just said.
I know.
So, but picture, yes, probably need to take care of it. But if I'm not mistaken, and if I heard your initial question right, it was do certain density housing here. They buy the houses, in 5 years they can come back and do a different density. Is that what I heard? Then that gets into PDDs, correct? Because they wouldn't be able to do that, if I'm not mistaken. If it's R1M, it stays R1M, or is where they could go and do R1H behind R1M?
They would have to get to what you're talking about, where they do a minor sub, create some smaller tracts over here, then larger tract that they can now do something with. To do anything with that larger tract would require a major subdivision of some kind, including a P. And depending on what type of density they wanted to do in there, they would probably have to rezone as well. And so at both of those, either the rezone or the major subdivision, there would be public hearings, P&Z meetings, council meetings for the rezone, and then say they were already R1M, they could go preliminary plat, final plat, but at both steps there would be council approval, and council getting, neighboring residents' input into the process. So there would be some, like I said, some protections in that case.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Maybe not to your satisfaction.
Well, you can dice and slice it many different ways. And my concern is, and it's always going to be for the existing homeowners in the area. Mm-hmm. And I understand, what Gary brought up. This is my property. Why can't I do with it? I can understand that too. But I think into consideration with the good neighbors, being good neighbor policy, you ought to take into consideration the people around you.
Sure.
And I don't know so much if this is going to do that.
Right now, if we're going to talk about one particular situation, the 600 Main, they can't do anything with the property. They have no access.
That's right.
They can't get any access under our code. The only way they're ever going to get access is either before this thing here is passed.
You know, I wonder, we've got this now in the second read, but if we were to go back and revise it somewhat, can we add in the, staff can do a minor subdivision like it currently is. We can, you know, 2 lots, do your minor subdivision, get approval, but then require the up to 4 lots is allowed, providing you get council approval by resolution. Requirements.
Any more than 2 lots.
Any more, well, yeah, and how to word, any more than 2 to 4 lots, and then you need to make sure that zoning setback properties, you just have a little checklist on these are the 3 or 4 things that would need to be, and anything 3 or 4 lots would need resolution for council approval. To add another step,
I mean, you can do it however you want to. I'd say there's not a thing wrong with making.
this way the simple ones could stay the way they are. The ones like these that are a little more difficult, because one of the things with Town Plaza is when they divide those, if they were divided up into 4 different lots, counting Great Southern, one of the things discussed would be important to have would be a cross easement and parking agreement, because all of those are connected, and you wouldn't shopping center owner to not want to pave their lot or block access to the others. It could cause havoc. So there would be certain you would want to place on doing a minor subdivision, just to make sure, you know, we're protecting everyone out there the best we can. So we can lay those to council.
Mr. Finkenberg, go ahead.
I'm fine the way that it is. Obviously, planning and zoning is advocating for it. Ron, do you see disadvantages or issues, like if this were to go through, where we get lawsuits the other way, where people would come in, this open the way I bought my property, you're changing the rules of the game in the middle?
What you get into from the legal aspects on both major and potentially on these is that if someone meets our standards, we can't turn them down. If they come in and cross all the T's and dot all the I's, and just because, I mean, you can, but you're opening yourself up to a...
More the way that it is now, or more with this change?
What, with the... I got my own concerns with the minor subdivision.
Well, I'm asking your recommendation, which way would you go on this? What you're either.
Hey, to be truthful, I'd give it to...
What you did?
through planning, zoning, and council. But, I mean, like I said, I've heard from council in the past that this here is too cumbersome. But if you want my opinion, so we don't have these, and it's not a legal opinion, it's just a policy decision you guys got to make. If you want to have these, I have absolutely no problem with that. That gets it to the elected officials who make the decision, who answer to the voters.
Agree with that.
But it's going to be more cumbersome and more expensive for the folks that are wanting the minor subdivisions.
To follow up to what Ron just said, I don't agree or disagree with what he's saying, but if you turn it over to P&Z and you add 30 to 45 days to the process to get it approved, typically.
I was just going to say, go ahead, you're going to say
No, I
something.
was waiting for a hand, but I didn't see anybody. Go ahead.
No,
Yeah, I know.
We're at the
You're
point
on the way to
now,
that,
where
yeah.
I believe we need to, if this can be tabled,
Motion to
we
table?
can take it back and put together procedure.
Motion to table.
I have a motion, table on second. I have a second, motion, first and a second.
Say something?
Yes.
If we make major changes on this, we're going to have to send it back to planning and zoning and have a hearing, because that's what
Motion and a second to table. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Any abstentions? That wasn't a very strong aye. Let's try it again. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion carries. Bill number 11-19 has been tabled. Need a motion to have reading of bill number second reading of bill number 11-20. Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
An ordinance of the Republic, Missouri, amending Title IV, Land Use, Chapter 405, Zoning Regulations for City of Republic, Article 1 in general, .020, definitions, and Article 7, additional district provisions by adding Section 405.6, oriented business locations, and Article 8, special use regulations, Section 405.670 generally.
Motion 1-20.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Derrickson, please give us the overview, sir.
Yes, this, as stated last, in a way, cleanup, but it's more detailed than just a simple cleanup. State legislature passed on sexually oriented businesses last year. What we're proposing to do is just kind of tag on to those, let the state statute regulation, and from our perspective, take the what we are going to regulate, which the state certain areas to regulate, take that out of the special use permit area and just put it as a standalone ordinance, because by it being in the felt like that created some potential issues that might lead us into litigation, and so requesting that that be moved out into a...
Questions, comments, discussion for Mr. Derrickson?
Amendments have been added from the last meeting, right? I assume.
That's what I was looking for.
Were those amendments?
I'm not sure that they were copied or not, since, Jared is saying they were copied.
Questions, comments, discussion? See none, roll call vote.
Councilmember Harrelson?
Aye.
Councilmember Ward?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Councilmember Hunsinger? Councilmember Groom?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. On to new business. Need a motion to have the first reading of bill number 11. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing the city administrator to enter into an interlocal agreement and the City of Republic, Missouri, regarding the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act Multi-Jurisdictional Cybercrime Grant, NJCC Assistance Grant, JAG Program Award.
Chief Lowe, give us the overview to the City Council, please.
Last year, with the City of Springfield in this multi-jurisdictional, basically, it's a cybercrime grant that tries to track down trading in pornography of children over the internet, and this is the second year of it for us, and it'll probably be the final. From a KY3 News bulletin this evening, apparently the grant was approved for us to the tune of $73,748.38, with our share being $16,785 and change, and to be only allowed to be used for the overtime for the officer, so they wouldn't necessarily be doing it on our time. They're being paid on extra time, just like Springfield's officers. So so it doesn't take away from the normal delivery of service to the citizens of the Republic. And then it's also used officer and some of the high-tech types of techniques that you'd use to use the fancy software and grant that we would otherwise never be able to acquire, and for the other supplies for it. So it is a great boon to the City of Republic and professionalism and investigative ability that a jurisdiction of our size wouldn't normally be capable of.
Questions, comments, discussion for Chief Bluff?
You said officer. Is that one person or officers?
One
Just one
that's
person?
specially trained in this area.
Okay.
Mr. Hunsinger?
Well, this is just a continuation of a program that we've been doing. Just actually cleaning up the paperwork so we can continue it.
Well, it's actually a renewal of that, but yes.
Cleaning up the paperwork, you're right.
Well-
It's a renewal, you're right. Other questions, comments, discussion? Chief Bluff? This is the first read. If you have questions, comments, discussion, ask, if you need clarification, please contact staff members. On the next item, you need a motion to have the first reading of bill number 11-21.
Motion.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing and directing the city administrator of the City of Republic, Missouri to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Tri-State Fire Recruitment Alliance.
Welcome, Chief Compton. Please give us the overview, sir.
About 3 years ago, several fire departments started this alliance in order to hire new hires, line staff. And they tried to get me at that time to join, and I thought, well, we'll see if it makes it or not. It's kind of like my dad told me years ago, you don't want to buy the first bottle of a new car when they come out. A lot of you are chuckling, Gary. So, been there, done that. So 3 years has gone by, and it's obviously going to make it, and it's a pretty good deal that's out there. When we do a testing process, and we currently have a couple openings because of some retirements, we advertise locally in this Republic paper or the Springfield News Leader. If I advertise in the Springfield News Leader, it's somewhere in a $600 to $800 range to put an ad in the paper. The Alliance reimburses the city up to $150 for advertisement. A lot of the advertisement that they do is on the internet. And I hate to bust your bubble, but a lot of kids nowadays that apply for jobs use the internet. They don't read the paper like we do. The Alliance then is basically the city of Joplin, HR department runs this. And the outside body that they have hired to do all of Joplin's testings for all of their positions is IO Solutions. They have a written test that they administer, or they send out to give. They grade that written test, so it takes it out of the local person's hands. It's a third party that strictly deals with the testing portion of it. The physical agility part is also somewhat monitored by them. There's a certain number of physical agility tests that they have that they do, that they have actually been tested by the Supreme Court. They got in a lawsuit in New Haven, Connecticut. The Supreme Court come down and upheld that the testing process that this company does is fair and unbiased to everybody. So the process that we have is kind of, I don't want to say loosely run, but it's not near the quality of what we're buying into here. $1,250 to join, and that's basically it. Other than staff time, when they do a test, and it'll be my time or one of the deputy chiefs that go out and help with the test. They test 4 times a year. This area twice a year, down in the Joplin area twice a year, or over in Kansas, right over Fort Scott or Parsons, somewhere over in there. The candidates that take the test pay a $75 fee to take the test and go through the process. And with that is a psychological evaluation that comes with it, as well as their test scores and stuff that's on the back of the paper there. We don't do any of the kind of psychological evaluations here. We don't have that expertise, nor do we want to spend the $6,000 to $8,000 it costs to hire people to come and do it. Any other questions?
Not from me. Questions, comments, discussion from council, Mr. Grooms?
$1,250 is a one-time fee.
Yes.
There's no annual renewal.
Ms. Poole, I know you're going to ask, is this in the budget?
Just getting ready to do that.
I was reading your...
I was getting ready to call on her, but go ahead.
Yes, she had her hand up. No.
Then forget it.
Yes, and as you know how the city budget works, there's line items for everything. There is a miscellaneous expense and personnel cost that will cover this. Does it say Tri-Investing Alliance in that line item? No, it's not there, but there's money there to cover it under miscellaneous.
So would it pay itself back from the savings and ads and all
Connie
that?
and I were figuring, yeah, it would pay itself back in a couple of years. We would come out ahead. Plus, it takes a liability off of the city, puts it onto a third party that administers it.
And we got a bigger pool of candidates as
Yeah,
well.
and Jim says, that's where we're at right now. If we went out and advertised today, we'll get 20 or 30 applicants that will apply. 10 of them will probably pass the written test. Out of that, 6 or 8 of them will pass the physical agility. And then we're down to a pretty slim list of pickings.
Yeah, candidates.
Yeah.
And they have 108 good candidates ready to go.
Yeah, they've passed the test so far. Now granted, if we pick somebody on the list, we're still gonna send them for a background check, drug screen, so forth and so on, and there's an interview process with us. So, I mean, there's still a lot we do, because a person's life can change a lot in a year from the time they took the test to, 8 or 9 months. For all we know, they may have had a DWI, and we were out in the background check process. So.
Other questions, comments, discussion for Chief? This is the first reading. If there's other questions, comments, or any clarification needed, please contact Mr. Krischke. Chief Compton, sorry, Chief. On other business and resolutions and discussion. We don't have any discussions. We'll have resolutions and other business. So, resolution number 11-R-45, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, for staff regarding a portion of the West Elm Street Sidewalk Improvement Project. Mr. Brock, give us an overview, and then Betty Northwood has filled out a card where she would like to speak, but I'm going to have Mr. Brock give us the overview first.
Council is aware we have a federal highway grant to reconstruct sidewalks between Main Street and along West Elm Street. And a small segment of our sidewalk project, about 144 feet, we have some existing bricks. Several months ago, when we went through the paperwork for the engineers, and last fall when we signed the grant application, council was interested in options on how to deal with the existing sidewalk. One of the biggest issues there was the right-of-way fell. And up till a very short time ago, I had the idea that it was going to be one or two conditions, either the within the right-of-way or the brick was not going to be in the right-of-way at all. It turns out neither perspective was right. The right-of-way line was anywhere between 9 and 15 inches, with the remainder of the 5-foot sidewalk being on private property. You all know that, but in George North are the owners of that property. So those being the conditions, we came back with two potential options out there. One would be to construct new sidewalk within the existing right-of-way. Leave a 2-foot separation or so between the existing brick sidewalk that could be landscaped. Essentially, try to minimize any disruption of that existing sidewalk. Option 2 then would be to acquire for the remainder of the sidewalk, or require as much room as necessary to build new sidewalk. And that option moves. Our precedence is on these type of projects, we offer them to the adjoining property owner, as initially they weren't wanted in a future memorial or a future patio, some project. Now, we prepared these because I had a sense that there was no way that we could rehabilitate the brick sidewalk to Mrs. Met with Betty today, and I don't think that's true any longer. And that the rehabilitation issue was existing sidewalk out there, it has a crown in it. We know that for our project, with federal dollars, we could not rebuild it. It would have to go in with a no more than 2% cross slope on it. So that's where I felt like there was no way to approach this that we could rehabilitate it, meet our standards, and make our adjoining property owners happy. Today, Betty's indicated that if she had her druthers or choices, that might be an acceptable approach. So you could throw on there would be to acquire the property rights and rehabilitate the sidewalk, have information if you'd like to get into that. We're at a design point that we need to select a basic approach and move forward from there.
Hold on, Mr. Sir.
This
I was going to let that.
rehabilitation, are we
Yes, that would be to remove the existing brick and relay.
So what if that brick's been there a while, lower than a sidewalk would be, I think by maybe 6 to 8 inches, isn't it?
In some places, yes.
Some places. If we take that brick up and it crumbles, which I don't know how long it's been there, probably more than 50. If it crumbles, then what do we do for
replacement brick? Had occasion to speak with John. I think he's assistant street superintendent. They have a pretty good background and done a lot of rehabilitation. About 2% of their sidewalks are made of brick, and they have a pilot program. They just let a bid $5,000 contract to rehabilitate brick sidewalks. And their procedure is you remove a short segment of the existing sidewalk, or the subgrade that needs to be raised or lowered or adjusted, and then you take the brick from one side of the workspace and move it over to the other. Certainly, there would have to be some grade adjustment out there.
That has nothing to do with our grant, however. They won't do that.
If it meets ADA standards, we would get reimbursed for it. City of Springfield believes they have developed a set of standards. I mean, the work hasn't been completed yet, but they are undertaking that specific project with the intent of meeting ADA.
Before you ask any more questions, I wanted to make sure Betty North she's filled out a card she'd like to speak on this particular subject. Betty, would you like to come up and speak now? You. And then when you're finished, I'm gonna bring David back up to finish out, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Heard all of his comments before I wrote what I wrote this afternoon,
Well,
because
change what you want to change.
that's hard to do when you're in the middle of a paragraph. As an introduction, I've often said before this council that communication is very, very perception is very, very important. So that's kind of a background to my statements right now. As some of you may recall, I spoke to you about saving the old brick sidewalk in front of the house at 217 West Elm. You have a new council member since that time, and some of for that meeting. Anyway, to bring you up to date, in February, I made what was meant to be an impassioned plea to ask council 5-foot wide brick sidewalk, probably the only one remaining in the entire city. In council discussion, council including it is a neat part of history and it has significance. Also mentioned in those early council meetings, the sidewalk could be an option. Since those early meetings, I've been told there was once a brick factory in Republic, and a former had been told the material for their bricks came from the saucer-like area of the field just southwest of the intersection of West Street and the railroad. If that information is correct, and if the brick came from Republic's big brick factory, then I feel the sidewalk does have historical significance. Recognizes the historical significance of brick sidewalks. They have about 13 miles of brick sidewalk and have set aside a significant have as many as possible. Springfield's Brick Sidewalk Task Force feels their brick sidewalks are historic and asset that should be preserved. Brick sidewalks built in the 1800s are still in use today. Brick sidewalks may cost more to install. The total cost of installation and the repair is less expensive in the long run. If you made a site visit to 270 or sometime before tonight's meeting to see the sidewalk, I hope you look for broken bricks in the sidewalk. The problem with broken bricks was mentioned as a negative to rehabbing the sidewalk. I would estimate there are fewer than 2% of broken removed, most of the bricks would be reusable. When I first considered the possibility of rehabbing the sidewalk, my thought was intact as much as possible and rehab only the portions that had to be redone. I understand there's reach down and raise up a brick, fill it in with sand, put it back down. I really wanted to be consistent with the original sidewalk in order to maintain the historical significance. Consistent with the original sidewalk regarding the slight arch in the 5-foot span which allowed for water to drain off. Purpose that way. However, if I had been told by staff that definitely was not an option, then I would of relaying the brick flat if that was the only way to keep the brick sidewalk. But staff never told me that retaining the slight arch could not possibly be done. During one of the early council meetings, I understood there was a $2,000 allocation to study the brick sidewalk in the proposal that council approved. I assumed that meant the city was going to do a formal study for the sidewalk, and that at the end of the study there would be a written report regarding all of those options. I thought that. Now, as I understand it, no study was done. Apparently there was a survey for which I have asked for a copy more than once. I know there is nothing more regarding the issue than a sketch of the sidewalk with 5 lines going along it. Have we waited for 4 sketch, and is that the study in its entirety? I asked Mr. Brock in early July if I could see the time it was not completed. When I asked again this week, I understood it didn't have a seal on it yet. I have yet to see. In the discussion portion of your staff analysis tonight, it states the staff is presenting information and what does apparent mean? What information has been provided to you except for the drawings? If you have other information, the analysis states that the options are narrowed due to the location of the right-of-way. Were eliminated by that line, and why were they eliminated due to the location of the right-of-way line? Now, disposition of the bricks if the sidewalk cannot be rehabbed. If you feel that tearing out the brick sidewalk to reuse the bricks for a memorial would be a good reason not to rehab the sidewalk, I would ask you not to consider those potential uses of the bricks in making. Apparently, staff knew what had been done with the bricks in the past, but did not speak up earlier in the council meetings about what had happened in. It is my understanding that in the past, the bricks from old sidewalks have been given to the homeowners whose yards they came from. In sound like removing the bricks would be a bonanza for the city or some civic organization, and that option would provide a positive benefit for. Bricks have to come out. I would hope the city does not take them away to others. Staff knew from my past comments how passionately I felt about the sidewalk. I had said I would like to see it. As I said, I was never told outright that that could not be an option. I told staff in July that I wanted to be kept informed on the status of the project. As far as I knew, at that time, nothing had been done other than to order the survey. It was only a week ago that I was invited to meet with staff and first saw the sketch of the sidewalk. Did it take more than 4 months to come up with just the sidewalk for your consideration, the sketch for your consideration? I informed Mr. Brock of Springfield's effort to rehab their brick sidewalks at our last Monday's meeting, 1 week ago today. And I understand he made a call regarding their program since that time. This was after the agenda had already been typed and submitted. I also gave him the name and phone number of a brick sidewalk enthusiast in Springfield, but as far as I know, he has not spoken to him yet. That man is probably more knowledgeable about rehabbing brick sidewalks than anyone in our part of the state, and could have contributed a lot to information for you to consider tonight. If these contacts had been made earlier in this situation, and accurate information and/or rehabbing estimates obtained prior to this meeting, you might have better information on which to base your vote. One lady on the Springfield Task Force had been quoted $1 per square foot for rehabilitation. You can calculate that cost at 5 feet wide by the length of the sidewalk. One would have thought the length of the sidewalk would have been on the survey and the sketch, but it wasn't on my copy. Was there any effort to get meaningful information regarding rehabbing the sidewalk prior to the draft of the City Council meeting tonight, of the agenda? If not, then why not? And if so, was that information provided to you? It was my understanding when you discussed the issue earlier in the year, your direction to the staff was to explore all the options, including rehabilitation. I fully understand it is hard to quantify an actual historical value of a brick sidewalk. I'm aware that no one knows how old the sidewalk is. The house is 100 to 100 years, 110, I think, years old. But if it is the last remaining sidewalk in Republic, and if the brick might have been made locally from indigenous materials, that makes it important to me. I also understand that it is not in good condition, but that is the norm when rehabilitating anything that is old. Regardless of the outcome of your vote, I hope you are concerned regarding the process in getting there. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Brock, would you, bring council and the citizens up to speed on exactly what the council is looking at again? Just make sure they understand exactly what they're to be deciding on and the direction they're supposed to be giving you.
Okay, one of the issues here is, the working space to construct or reconstruct sidewalks. Do we utilize existing right-of-way? Know that for that block, the brick sidewalk and the old concrete sidewalk, immediately east of that, the city does not have property rights to go in and rebuild that. So do you care to work within the existing right-of-way? Do you want to keep existing alignment and acquire necessary property rights? The council desires to acquire existing property rights. As I mentioned before, the staff recommendation is to remove the brick sidewalks, offer that to the property owner, install ADA compliant standard concrete. Now, I also mentioned, and I think Betty kind of alluded to this too, each time we communicate with one another, you find a different wrinkle. The issue of the crown sidewalk is not one that we have any wiggle room on ADA. So I do think that if the council desires, we do have the ability, if you acquire the right-of-way, to rehabilitate that sidewalk and meet our ADA standard. But we cannot put a crown in it. Have to go in on a plane, 2% maximum slope.
Questions, comments, discussion for Mr. Brock? Mr. Grooms?
The rehabilitation, is that the remove and replace estimate?
I believe so.
That's $20 per linear foot?
Now that is not rehabilitation. That's sidewalk out and construct sidewalk. City of Springfield, their contract or their bid was for over 7,000 linear feet of sidewalk. Their bid price was $8 a foot. I would not expect square foot.
Prices are, so that okay, I apologize, I didn't see what we had before.
I would not expect with this small a job to get anything close to unit price. They had one bidder. So I would, if you want to compare cost, I would say double the figure as a working number.
We would have to pay.
Correct.
You would have to pay as part of the grant program or pay strictly out of city funds.
I think we could get that approved through the grant. That would be
80/20.
That's correct.
We had when all of this came up, yes, it was the intent to look at all of the available options, and there are certainly options. The two options that were presented. The third option is simply remove and replace and reset those, as Ms. North said, individually pop each one out and reset them, and David just the cost to do that. That was, no intent not to bring that up. When staff makes a recommendation, of course, we've got to make them a recommendation on what is the best means to fix and replace a sidewalk. Deciding on whether or not you want to invest, the city wants into rehabbing an old brick sidewalk, that's more of a policy issue that we need to see. From our standpoint, we need to look at what is the funds, what's the best way to do this within the parameters of the grant that we received. Yes, we could make this fit, but that's a decision that council needs to make, not the rehabbing of that particular sidewalk. We did present the one option where we actually went around it, where the sidewalk would remain there in existence on Ms. North's property. We could vacate that small portion of right-of-way that we have, so it remained entirely on her property, and we can landscape in between it. So there were some options to save that, but it's pretty. Either pull them out and replace them, reset them rather, or the two options that were presented.
Mr. Wilson?
In your copy here, it says that crown sidewalks, their research is that a crown was not a design feature but a common failure that develops over time. So if you do that with the brick, are we gonna end up with a crown over time?
Springfield has spec'd an edging, aluminum to essentially try to hold those bricks into place. It's a new procedure, so we weren't able to provide any information as to whether it stands up better over time than other methods.
Maybe that 50 years.
Over time, though, especially through the winter with the fall and freeze, I mean, isn't that gonna raise that aluminum?
That's a good point. I mean, that the depth of your frost zone, that's where you see the heaving.
Mr. Hatzinger?
If we elect, as Mrs. North alluded to, brick, do whatever she wanted, what's the cost of pulling the brick out? There must be a cost in that.
There would be. It would probably certainly be dependent on how you spec that out. Do you hand remove it? Do you allow mechanized equipment?
I really don't see a front loader going in there and saving any brick. I'm not in the construction business, but I've seen a lot of it work, and I don't think that'll work. But what I'm trying to find out, any tight situation.
I think we should go with the second option.
Okay. How do you want to do this? You want to go with option one vote, option two vote?
Need a motion
to big concrete sidewalk.
I think someone needs to make a motion to strike to accept option one or option two, or option three as they described it.
Which would be, all right,
Whichever one they choose to make a motion on.
Okay. I just want to make sure we've got two options in front of us. David, did you have a third option you want to add to the list?
That would essentially be a variation of option two. Preparation of plans includes acquisition of right-of-way. However, instead of removal and replacement would be the rehabilitation of existing brick.
That would be removing the brick, bringing it up to grade and putting it back.
Correct.
Just so that we're clear, David, on that particular option, it's going to be remove the existing brick, reset it similar to the specifications that Springfield has in that aluminum channel, and then they'd have a 2% cross grade to it.
Correct.
And then replacement bricks would be as needed, and we're estimating the cost at about $10,000. Is that, if I remember right? That's why I wrote
that would be pretty close.
And of which 80% would be recoverable from the grant. Maybe. And if so, we'd have 20% cost to the city. I just want to make sure that we got it all laid out.
Flush that out.
And
You're right. We do need to make sure everyone's aware. Betty had mentioned the number of cracked bricks. We looked over it. It's difficult to make a judgment of how many bricks might have to be rejected because they're not square anymore or cracked. I would have estimated a little higher than Betty, somewhere around 5%. But the difficulty there is there's still a lot of grass overgrown. I saw a lot of hairline cracks where the brick hadn't separated. The City of Springfield's experience has been about a 25% rejection rate. So if that's the option the council wants to go to, we would need to have provisions. We're going to put it back 5 foot wide to have some replacement bricks, excuse me, low on blood sugar, or to reduce the, thank you, Dan. You could reduce the width of the sidewalk from 5 foot down to 4, and that would give you some additional bricks for replacing the ones that are defective.
So, council, what's in front of you is three different options. Option number one, read there about adding a sidewalk right next to it with a 2 foot separation. Two is to acquire the property rights, remove the bricks. Ms. North has indicated she will remove the bricks, sign a waiver. Also, that would allow us to come in afterwards and put an ADA sidewalk in, compliant sidewalk in. Number 3 would be rehabilitate, as David had just mentioned, the current sidewalk with the bricks. Those are your 3 options at this particular point.
I'd like to make a motion on option 2.
Okay, I have a motion on option 2.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second on option 2. Are you want to vote on that motion, or do you want, how you want to do it? Because otherwise that strikes the other 2.
Yeah, it does. Then you have to pass the resolution.
You don't have to pass the resolution,
Right.
but the motion, okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I have a motion and a second to take option number 2. Now, granted, this is just, at the point where we are voting on his, amendment, or, yes, we're voting on that, we're not voting on the resolution. We have a motion and a second for option number 2. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Any abstentions? One abstention. Motion carries 5-2 to 1. Now, these 2, Shane abstained, these 2, Ms. Poole and Dr. Ward, voted no. Now, the resolution in front of you, resolution number 11-R-45, has been read. Option number 2 is the only remaining option that is under the resolution. Comments, discussions, or questions under this particular one? Mr. Grooms.
May I ask a question comparing the one that has just passed with one that has been rejected for the moment? This is why I abstained, because I had an unanswered question.
Yeah, I mean, this is discussion.
Sure. Yeah.
Acquiring property rights versus the cost of the, the storm pipe. What kind of a comparison is that? Are we trading dollars? Is the storm pipe more expensive than what you would expect the property rights to cost, or
No,
vice versa?
I would expect the storm pipe to be less expensive.
Everybody knowing the storm pipe, if we move that sidewalk out further, or closer to the road, there's a small ditch in there now, we're assuming that we put a underground storm pipe in there and cover that up, so.
That makes option 1 look more attractive.
Probably need to have a storm in there anyway, wouldn't you think, that drainage?
It's a very shallow swell at that point. Main Street in Elm is kind of a local high point, so there's not a lot of drainage that heads that direction. The summary, it would be a bit of a challenge to get a storm pipe in there. We'd have to go on down the hill in order to get enough buried depth to do that.
Mr. Wilson?
Move that sidewalk closer to the road, that there's increasing the danger of the sidewalk. To me, that would be kind of a safety issue to put that sidewalk as close to the road as you're talking.
It's not a curb and gutter street.
And how close to the sidewalk, how close to the road would it be?
Typically, we want the sidewalk 1 foot inside the right-of-way. And the purpose of that is to get as much separation as you can from the driving surface.
Ms. Harrison?
Just a question. If Mrs. North were to remove the, how would that affect the cost of rehab? If she did that herself and then we were to rehab it, how would that affect the cost? Would it reduce it greatly or just not even bother with?
It certainly would have a tendency to lower the cost to do that.
But do you think significantly, or? I mean, I don't know what the, I guess I don't know what the cost, I know the rehab is considering removing and then putting back down, but if it was already removed, ballpark it for me.
You know, maybe 5%.
Okay.
And the majority of the work is
Just
getting
putting it
them back in there, I think.
Just wanted to be sure I had that answer.
Other questions, comments, discussion? front of you is for option number 2. Anything else? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oops.
I need a motion.
We never did.
We made a motion, but we never, no, we never
Well,
did.
we never did make a second. We just jumped right into discussion.
That's right.
No,
We made a motion in a second on option 2.
No,
No, we
that's
didn't.
the beginning.
Not on resolution.
No, it's not on a resolution.
Yeah, I read it.
We didn't vote on it.
We need to go back and make a motion to accept.
No, I think you've made a motion to choose option 2, which is a separate issue. Now, making a motion and a second to accept the resolution with option 2. I'll make that motion.
I have a motion, second. Now I can go to the voting phase, correct?
Right.
Okay, so I'll make sure I'm on. Okay, I have a motion and a on resolution number 11-45-R-45. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-3-0. Okay, there's nothing on executive session, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion carries, meeting adjourned, thanks very much.